Hi, I'm Jonathan Morin. I'm the creative director on Watch Dogs, and today I'm here to answer your questions.
You think you're untouchable? I'm here to shatter your illusions.
Yes, like you can actually invade other players' games, which means that yes, you can invade a friend and hack him. It's going to give you reward, and you can also like have an entire meta game progression tied to that kind of gameplay. PlayStation 4 is a powerful machine, so we really want to exploit what they have to offer. So you can expect, of course, better graphics, those kinds of stuff, but also a more sophisticated simulation, like a wind simulation that creates a coherent like simulation everywhere on the clothing of everybody, the way the water is simulated when you're on a boat, the way it's in relation with the weather, all of that kind of stuff will be a bit more pushed. And of course, the density of the simulation and some of its behaviors will be let's say improve a little bit and more variety on that front. Yes, you can swim in Watch Dogs. It's mostly focusing on vehicles that are on wheel as well as the boats. Like there's no chopper that you can control in the game. We're focusing on the ground level. Neither of them actually. We cannot call, like we're not calling the building the real names. Like we're focusing on the many landmarks in Chicago, but we don't use the real names of the buildings.
And can you go up the tower?
That I'm gonna let you discover. The idea was we definitely recreated the most we recreated was the Loop District. Like this one is definitely more faithful to the real Chicago. Afterwards, we always took liberties for gameplay's sake to make sure it feels right from a level design standpoint. So it's not a complete replica, it's more our interpretation of the city of Chicago. But there's going to be plenty of deja vus, like for those who've been there, like they'll see exactly where they're supposed to be right now. You need to purchase them with skill point. It's an RPG kind of structure. So you do main mission and side content, and depending on how you play, you can unlock them really quickly, or it takes a bit more time. So we're giving you a few by default, and afterwards you need to work to get them. I never really tried it. Like it never occurred to me that I should try that. I think it's a pretty big city. Like that being said, like it's definitely a huge one. But I guess one of the reasons why I don't know is because when I play, I spend a lot of time on a street corner. You know, because of the profiling and all of that. Like you can go at 200 miles per hour and cross the city, but you can also stand still for 20 minutes and you're still playing the game. You're still finding stuff out. Like, so it's very dense as well as very big. That I can say. It's pretty much the same game. I think the one thing that you can consider with the Wii U is the controller. So there's some nice twist there with the map and things like that. But it's pretty much the same game, which try to optimize as much as possible for the controls so it feels right. Yes, you can change Aiden's clothing. Like I'm not going to go as far as detailing everything, but you can definitely go into a clothes stores and buy some new outfits for Aiden. I'm going to focus on Watch Dogs 1 first, and we'll see afterwards. Right now, the first game is not even out, so... They are definitely random events. Like we call them like potential crime events. So like when you play in Watch Dogs, you progressively create your own monitoring network, like by hacking certain things in the free roaming experience, and that unlocks tons of content, a possible event that can happen. There's a lot of them, so I couldn't count. Like it's pretty much endless, and the way we're doing it is we're dynamically creating a scenario, and then afterwards the people involved in the scenario and their personalities, their profile info, they always dynamically change as well. And when you decide to intervene in such a situation, if you want to prevent a crime or anything like that, what follows up in gameplay is also pretty systemic. So there's a lot of dynamism going on in the city for those kind of things. The reputation system is not the game trying to rate what you do. It's more based on real life, if you want. Like it's more like the media who when they have reports of what you're doing, they're going to talk about it. So it's not because you steal a car that you lose reputation. Like you need to have witness of that for it to happen. So you can do bad things without anybody knowing. And if you do that, then you just live with yourself. And if you start wreaking havoc in a reckless way, then definitely there's going to be an impact on it. The way to balance it, I guess, is to create an environment where the player will care about it, instead of trying to say you're a bad guy. Like, instead, make the game plausible enough, make the respawn of the simulation plausible enough so that when you play it, you feel like something, oh, that maybe is not that right, versus like, oh, this is feeling quite wrong, so that intentionally the player, if he wants to be bad, then he can be bad. Watch Dogs it's been hard actually to call the game. There's a lot of geeky words that could have been used. Watch Dogs is the perfect term for us. Like, first of all, there's the term watch at the beginning, which is very close to surveillance and all of that. The dogs with an S, like, suggests like the multiplayer aspect of our game, and the fact that everybody can watch everybody in Watch Dogs. And a Watch Dogs in real life, like, is also pretty close to the thematics of the game. So we thought it was fitting all around, like, for pretty much everything that we do, up to the point of technology and hacking, surveillance, like all of that is tied to that word. It depends how you play, actually. If you are getting in a felony loop and the cops arrive for the first time, if you don't show any sign of leaving or shooting or becoming violent, they're going to try and arrest you. A bit like what we showed at the E3 2013. But that's a one-shot deal. If you stand still and you pretend that you're going to surrender, they're going to behave like trying to arrest you, and that gives you a window to try and get out before you get arrested. But if you start being violent, if they see you trying to flee, now they're going to switch in something more reckless. I think the biggest difference we have with Watch Dogs is there's this little moment, but that moment is only a slight part of the AI behavior. The biggest part is the stealth version. Like, it's when you break line of sight with the cops, they go in search mode, and there's an whole realization and a complete set of behaviors on par for that. When you die in the game, we automatically pretty much like respawns you like close by in the open world. If you're in a mission, it's going to be at your checkpoint at a mission. We're trying to avoid any delays with the experience of the player, so there's no such thing as respawning at an hospital or stuff like that. We're focusing on bringing you as close as possible as where you were. You can't customize like specific cars or weapons, but there's tons of cars and weapons to purchase. Chicago is a very modern city, both for real, but also in their mentality. Like, it's for people who know a bit about Chicago, it's a city that constantly reinvents itself through its crisis. Like, it burned down like severely, and then afterwards they made a massive upgrade in architecture variation when they built on top of it. And now it's a very rich place visually because of it. So for us, it made sense to take a city that, from a political standpoint, it would be possible that they would try something like CTOS and see how they can fix the problems of crimes and stuff like that in the city. It's only after we picked it that it became so close to what we're talking about. So it was a nice pick in the end, I guess. It's for the map navigations for now. Like, the tool arrived we didn't know that existed like when we started the game. And I think it's a nice way of using it, especially for a first ride, just to make sure that we don't change the entire control scheme and balance for the main experience. I think that's two questions. First question, I think most of the references are real life, actually. Like, it started with us talking around a beer about Facebook conspiracy and stuff like that, and then ending up realizing we wanted to explore that aspect. So then we just digged in the news and on the web about what's possible to do with a computer and then a phone, and realized there was a shitload of stuff you could do in real life. So that's pretty much the main inspirations for us. As far as Aiden's personality, Aiden is a conflicted man. He's someone who's quite obsessed with surveillance and protection of his family. So you're not going to play a guy who's, overly good or overly bad. He's kind of in the middle ground, a bit like certain TV shows we see, like Breaking Bad, for example. Like I love those shows that now are shying away from the old school United States good and bad syndrome, and now they're going more with a gray area, embracing the fact that every human being sometimes does something bad but have a reason for it, and sometimes are doing something good. So Aiden is a bit more like that. There's no real bond between Twitter and Watch Dogs directly in the game. We wanted to focus on the universe first and not have any external stuff from a social media standpoint. What we wanted to do was more direct gameplay. So for example, that's why we have the companion app. So every time we talked about hyperconnectivity in the game, we acknowledge that, you know, the player has his phone on the table while he's playing the game almost every time. So when he quit the console and grabbed his phone, we wanted him to be able to continue to play or impact the game. No, the phone is magical. It recharges itself, like, for gameplay purposes. So you know, we tried that actually, to go and recharge stuff, and it was not that fun at the end, like, because of the open world and the flexibility of it. So now the phone it's kind of like a health system, right? It regens itself over time. I would love to have a phone like that. It would be awesome. So thank you everyone, and for everything on Watch Dogs, just stay tuned on IGN.